And Moshe said, Hear, O Yisrael, Yahweh your Elohim, Yahweh is one, and you shall love Yahweh your Elohim with all your heart, with all your being, and with all your might. And these words which I am commanding you today shall be in your heart, and you shall impress them upon your children, and shall speak of them when you sit in your house and when you walk by the way, when you lie down and when you rise up, and shall bind them as a sign on your hand, and they shall be as frontlets between your eyes, and you shall write them on the doorposts of your house and on your gates. Shabbat Shalom, everyone. Shabbat Shalom to everyone worshiping with us at home. The name of the message today is called, And Poof, It Was Over. All right? Now, you'll see why. You'll see why. And for the folks at home, may need to do a little fast listening today because there's several things we're going to cover. Have you ever read the book of Ecclesiastes, or Koheleth as it's called in the ISR? It's a wonderful book, which is full of much wisdom. And if you haven't read it, or if you haven't read it in a while, I would like to suggest that you go read it. And I know this might be hard to do with your busy schedules and everything because it's a whopping 8 pages long, you know. But it's worthwhile. And I'd like to suggest that after you read it, that you go back and you read it again, and then read it periodically throughout the year because it'll benefit you. Most people believe that it was written by Shlomo, and that's what our subject's going to be on today is the book of Ecclesiastes, and something in particular about the book. Most people believe that it was written by Shlomo because you may want to go ahead and turn there to Ecclesiastes. We'll get out of it a little bit today, but not a lot. Ecclesiastes, we're going to be on chapter 1. And it says in verse 1, the words of Koheleth, son of Dawid, sovereign in Jerusalem. But then in verse 12, if you'll skip down, it says, I, Koheleth, was sovereign over Yisrael in Jerusalem. But regardless of who wrote it, it is written from the perspective of an old man who has lived his life. And it is from that vantage point that, and the wisdom of age, that he shares his philosophy with his readers. The older I get, the more I wish that I had listened to my elders. Amen. What, oh man, y'all wish I'd listened to my elders? Okay. You know, they say we can learn from our own mistakes, right? But that doesn't mean that we can't learn from the mistakes of other people's, does it? Let me ask you this. Have you ever watched America's Funniest Home Videos? I haven't even said one yet, and you're already laughing. Can you maybe figure out for yourself by watching someone else that jumping on a bed underneath a ceiling fan is a bad idea? Or do you have to have part of your scalp removed in order to learn that lesson? Okay? Yeah. If we can learn the same lesson from another person's experience, we don't have to pay the same price for tuition. Amen? Amen. Now think about it this way. You're a toddler. Let's say like Seth. Or Ariel. Yeah. And you decide you want to touch that bright, shiny light bulb. And all of a sudden, someone Nick's age, or Corian's age, or Elliot's, or any other of these young people's age here, says to you, no, it's hot. You can say to yourself, I remember what hot means because I touched that oven door and I don't want to do that anymore. They're older and have life experience that I don't have, and I don't want to get burned, so I'll listen to their wisdom. Now, I am, of course, presuming that if you said that to yourself, you are a very articulate toddler with great problem-solving skills. All right? Or B, say to yourself, please, they treat me like such a baby. Why can't they just leave me alone? I can make my own decisions. Then you can touch the light bulb and get burned and pay the price to learn the lesson. But you learn the lesson Either way, one of them costs less than the other. To you, that is. By the way, that goes to show you that even young people have wisdom that they can pass on to the younger ones. Amen? See? So we can all learn and we can all teach. And we can all learn from our elders and those who have gone before us. And I'm going to give you an example. I once received an email from that was written by a 90-year-old lady, and it was called Lessons Life Taught Me. I think Joanne sent that to me. And it had a lot of wisdom in it. The one I remembered the most is this. Frame every so-called disaster with these words. In 5 years, will it matter? Huh. Do you realize how empowering that is when confronted with to react or not react? That is the question. In 5 years, will this matter? Boy, you can put a whole lot of crummy stuff into perspective by asking yourself that question. Amen? All right? In 5 years, will that matter? And that's the wisdom of the elders. Now, the book of Ecclesiastes, or Koheleth, is full of wisdom about life from which we can learn much. There are a couple of problems with it, though. Most of these, however, have to do with the attitude of the reader rather than with the book itself. You see, some people are so consumed in negativity and have such a dismal outlook that they only see the glass as half empty, and they're sure there's a crack in it somewhere we can't find. Do you know what it means? Do you know what it means to see red? You know what seeing red means? If a person's already seeing red, don't give them a pair of rose-colored glasses. They're only going to see more red. It won't do any good. Do you understand what that means? People talk about putting on people that have on rose-colored glasses see everything in a Pollyanna, beautiful, wonderful. No, I'm talking to somebody else. I just don't want to call them by name. All right. So if you suggest to somebody, they put on some rose-colored glasses when they're already seeing red, they're only going to see more red. Folks like that have trouble with the book of Ecclesiastes. Now, much of this book is what an old man has to say about life, acceptance, and reality. And this book has quite a lot in common with something that you may be familiar with, the Serenity Prayer. Anybody here know the Serenity Prayer? I like to call it the Shalom Prayer. The reason I like to call it that is because Shalom means complete contentment, and when you think about what serenity is, that's really what that is. And there just happen to be people that can't handle the Shalom Prayer, though. Yah, grant me the shalom to accept the things that I cannot change, the courage to change the things that I can, and here's the word, the wisdom to know the difference. See, it's a beautiful tool to have if you know how to use it. But some people say it this way. Grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, so that everybody else can just keep doing all the same things because my needs don't matter. The courage to change the things that I can, which is nothing. And the wisdom to hide the bodies of those I had to kill because I couldn't stand it anymore. Okay, now this is not what the Shalom Prayer is about. Amen? And neither is this book. Neither is this book. So let's take a look. Ecclesiastes chapter 1, I hope you're still there, verse 1. The words of Koheleth, the son of David, sovereign in Jerusalem. Futility, futility, says Koheleth. Futility, futility. All is futile. What does man gain from all his labor in which he toils under the sun? A generation passes away, and a generation comes, but the earth stands forever. Now, the King James Version says, vanity, vanity. All is vanity. That doesn't sound very encouraging, does it? It almost sounds like, well, what's the use while we just wring our hands? You know? I want to share some things with you that might be a useful way to look at this, because Koheleth is actually wanting to help us get a proper perspective. Right? This Hebrew word that's translated futility, and this is important, and vanity, is the word ABEL. ABEL. Strong's defines it this way. I'm not going to get any real long definition, so Strong's defines it this way, and it's number 1892, and it's from 1891, and it means emptiness or vanity, figuratively something transitory and unsatisfactory, often used as an adverb. Okay. Brown Drivers Briggs defines it this way. See if you see a difference. Vapor, breath, and then vanity, or vainly. See, though it too defines it as vanity just like Strong's did, the number one definition is vapor and breath, not vanity. According to the Complete Word Study Dictionary, this word ABEL is used 70 times in the Scriptures. 35 of these are in, guess which book? Ecclesiastes. It refers to breath because of its transitory, fleeting character. 70 times this word is used in the Scriptures, and exactly half of them are in these 8 short pages. There is a reason that I'm pointing this out today. It's not so much an earth-shattering concept, but one that I hope it will add a little variety to your next reading of Koheleth, as we'll see. So, this word translated vanity is what? ABEL. All right? Now, Adam and Hawa had 2 sons. One of them was named Cain, or Cain, and one of them was named what? Abel. All right? Interesting, ABEL just happens to be the very next word in the Strong's Concordance. It's Strong's number 1893, and it says the same as 1892. Isn't that interesting? It's the same as 1892, and it says Abel, the son of Adam. The same as 1892. His name means vapor, breath, or vanity. And Yeshua must have thought pretty highly of Abel because, see, he referred to him as righteous Abel. Now, I'm sure that you've noticed that the Scripture tells us why Hawa called Cain, or Cain, Cain. She said, I have received a man from Yahweh. All right, we'll read that in a second. But have you ever noticed that it's silent about why she named her other son Abel? Turn with me to Genesis chapter 4. Don't lose your spot in Koheleth, because we're coming back. Genesis chapter 4. Going to be on page 4, interestingly enough. Can't always count on that, can you? Genesis chapter 4, verse 1. And Adam knew Hawa, his wife, and she conceived and bore Cain, and said, I have gained a man from Yahweh. And again she gave birth to his brother Abel. And Abel became a keeper of sheep, but Cain became a tiller of the ground. And it came to be in the course of time that Cain brought an offering of the fruit of the ground to Yahweh. So you see, it doesn't tell us why. You ever notice that? Kind of interesting. However, the book of Jasher sheds a little more light on the subject. Now, I know there's a lot of people that just because I said Jasher, they're going to get up and they're going to turn the computer off, or just sit back now. Okay, listen a second. You see, the book of Jasher, even a lot of scholars believe that it was written in the 15th century. Okay, it is still a Hebrew writing, all right? And it still gives some insight into Hebrew linguistics and understanding. This is what it says in Jasher chapter 1:13. And she called the name of her firstborn Cain, saying, I have obtained a man from Yahweh. Kind of sounds like what we just read, right? And the name of the other she called Abel. For she said, in vanity we came into the earth, and in vanity we shall be taken from it. Kind of makes sense, doesn't it? All right? So we have a witness here in the book of Jasher that confirms what our dictionaries that we've already looked at have to say. And that's kind of interesting, isn't it? Now, his name means vanity or futility, or perhaps breath or vapor. It is possible that the intent of his name was, instead of in vanity we came into the earth and in vanity we shall be taken from it, it's this one. Because in breath of Yahweh, in breath we came into the earth, and in breath we shall be taken from it. In other words, when we die, it leaves us. Genesis 2:7. And I'm going to tell you what some of the Hebrew words are right here as we go through, 3 of them in particular. Verse 2:7. And Yahweh formed the man out of the dust of the ground and breathed, nakaf, he breathed into his nostrils breath, neshama, and the man became a living being, nephesh. All right, nakaf, it is a primitive root to puff in various applications, literally to inflate or blow hard, like you might see somebody giving, mouth-to-mouth resuscitation, right? Blowing hard into their airway there. Kindle, expire, figuratively to de-esteem. Neshama, from 5395, a puff that is wind, angry or vital breath, divine inspiration, intellect, or concretely an animal. And then nephesh means a breathing creature. That's what nephesh means, all right? So Yahweh formed the man and inflated him. He breathed into him the breath of life, and he became a breather. He wasn't a breather before that, right? A breathing creature. Psalms 146. Don't lose your spot in Koheleth. Psalms 146. Page 726 in the old ISR. Verse 3. Do not put your trust in princes and the Son of Man, in whom is no deliverance. His spirit goes out, he returns to his earth. In that day his plans perish. Okay? The KJV puts it this way. His breath goes forth, he returneth to his earth, and that very day his thoughts perish. All right? The word for breath here is not the one we heard a while ago. This one is ruach. All right? Now we're familiar with ruach, right? What does it mean? It's from 7306, wind, by resemblance, breath. That is a sensible or even violent exhalation. Figuratively, life, anger, unsubstantiality, by extension, a region of the sky. Okay. It has virtually the same meaning as the words used to describe the breath of life given in Genesis 2:7 that we just read. So these words are quite synonymous. You agree? All right? They have very similar meanings. We have synonyms too for breathing. That's not so earth-shattering. We have like gasping and panting and inhale, exhale. And what does ABEL mean? Breath, vapor, or vanity. So do you see why it's relevant to conclude that Hawa could just as easily have been speaking of the sense of breath rather than vanity when she named him ABEL? And that the passage in Jasher really could have been translated, She called him Abel, for she said, in breath we came into the earth, and in breath we shall be taken from it. All right? We came into life in breath, and when we die, our breath goes out, right? So why am I spending so much time on this? Well, remembering that half of the incidences of this word in the Scripture are all located in these actually 7.5 pages, I think that it's reasonable to consider that the author had a particular theme in mind when he wrote this. And you know what else? There are several other Hebrew words that actually mean vanity. And guess how many times any of these are used in this book? Goose egg. I couldn't find any. I couldn't find any other opportunities for one of the other Hebrew words for vanity used in this book. Also, the other words for vanity do not carry this meaning of breath. There's no air associated with it. Breathing is indeed necessary, but let me share something with you. It's an exercise in what? Futility. It's an exercise. Now, why is that? Because no matter how many times you draw a breath in, can you just keep it and hang on to it? No. You must release it. It must be done to keep you alive, but no matter how many times you take a breath, you can only accumulate no more than one, and only one for a moment, and then you have to let it go. And poof, it was over. But additionally, there is a strange little saying that the author uses 9 times in this book. It is a saying that is used only one other time in the entire Scripture, which is in Hosea 12:1, but Koheleth uses it 9 times, and it's this: Warayut Ruach. There's no charge for that. Warayut Ruach. And you look perplexed. You're thinking, wow, that's really interesting, Stan. What does that mean? Well, it depends on who you ask. Some define rayut as vexation, while others define it as striving or feeding. See, these are different words, or different. But feeding is in the way that sheep graze. So it's not surprisingly that some translations, like the KJV, for instance, translate it vexing, and others translate it feeding or something else. And what does ruach mean? Breath, wind, or spirit. All right. Nevertheless, Koheleth uses rayuth ruach 9 out of the 10 times it's used in the Scriptures. Now, Hebrew literature is frequently full of all kinds of word plays, and that's what we're dealing with here. Word plays are not unique in Hebrew, and we have them in English too. All right? Assonance. All right? The rain in Spain falls mainly on the plain. Of course, there's rhyme there too. Okay? Or Peter Piper picked a peck of pickled peppers. Right? There's alliteration. What about this? It was almost sundown on the Day of Atonement. He needed to go fast, so he could go fast. But he got his foot stuck, so there he stood fast. Huh. Now you understand what that means, right? But that's wordplay. Could our author of Ecclesiastes be using wordplay to make a point? All right. In Ecclesiastes 1:14, all right, so we're back over there now. Ecclesiastes 1:14, he says, I have seen all the works that are done under the sun, and behold, all is vanity and vexing the spirit. But in our ISR it says, I have seen all the works that are done under the sun, and see, all was futile and feeding on wind. ABEL werayut ruach. Futile and feeding on wind. Does that make sense to anyone, feeding on wind? That doesn't make any sense. It's used 9 times. It's used 9 times in the Scripture. How many times do you have to be told something? All right. Tell me what you think about this. I've got this right here. I got my cereal bowl. I got my spoon. I've got my Aereos. All right. Thanks to Candace, I've got it spelled right now. All right? I've got my Areos, and I'm gonna pour me a big old bowl of Areos right here. These are really good. Let me tell you some of the great things about this here. It's very low in calories. There's no fat. There's no trans fatty acids that you've got to worry about. It's got the OU on it right here, so it's kosher. It does. It's right there. Let's see. If you're on a low-carb diet, this is what you want. This is what you want right here. And the thing is they don't taste bad. Matter of fact, I'm going to get a big bowl of them. All right, I'm going to get a big bowl of them and a big spoon. And did you know what? It doesn't matter how much I do this, I'm not going to get filled up, am I? It's sort of a vain thing to do, isn't it? To eat a bowl of Areos. You can eat all of them you like. You won't get fat. There's just one problem with today's product. I'm going to put the top on it. I don't want it to spill. No matter how much of it you eat, it won't sustain you. It will not sustain you. It won't nourish you, will it? It won't even take away your hunger. You'd actually do better to eat the box rather than go get seconds or thirds. But there is one thing that you can say about feeding on wind or eating air, eating a vapor. It is a futile thing to do, amen? To feed on it. Oh no, you've got to breathe it. You've got to breathe it. But to feed on it. Now, I will admit that it is a perfect illustration to say all is futile in striving with wind. If one were to go outside, let's say Matt was to go outside and start wrestling with the wind, that would look rather foolish, wouldn't it? Well, especially if he lost. It always looks funny to me every time he does it. You know? But just for you folks at home, Matt really doesn't do that. But it would be futile because you cannot grab the wind and subdue it. Amen? And besides, if he was out there doing it, I would hope one of you would call 911. All right? All right. 35 times it uses ABEL and 9 times Reut Ruach. And 7 of those 9 times, he uses them in conjunction with one another. And he says, ABEL, Reut Ruach. All right? Futile and feeding on wind. All right? That's one of the reasons why I tend to think that the author here is using Hebrew wordplay. And I think what he's doing, that he's doing a wordplay on futility of breath and feeding on wind. Ecclesiastes 1:2. Think about it this way. Breath, says Koheleth. Breath, all is breath. Or vapor. You can put vapor in there. Verse 14. I have seen all the works that are done under the sun, and see, all was as a breath. And feeding on wind. You see a correlation now? You see the wordplay in that? Especially since he has other word choices. He chooses to use none of them. But he uses these exclusively more than any other place in the entire Scripture. Is that an accident? I don't think so. Also, I'm not sure that the author, I'm sure that the author is very well aware that the word Abel is the same word as Adam and Hawa's son, whose life indeed did end in a vain fit of anger. And the loss of Abel's breath, the loss of Abel. So like I said, this is not an earth-shattering revelation, but I think it has something to do with what the author intended for us to see as we read, but it's lost in the translation. All right, now moving right along. One of the things that the author is trying to share with us from the wisdom of his life's experience is that there are some things that we would all do well to accept. we would all do well to accept. He's learned that if you're going to toil away your life, or if that we are going to toil away our lives, and after all of our toil, our lives are going to be over and amount to not much more than what? A puff of wind. You realize that if it wasn't for the Scriptures, nobody would know anything about what Shlomo did or what David did. All these guys, there have been other great kings in history that we don't know anything about. It's just a puff of wind and poof, it's over. We spend our lives in futile pursuits a lot of times. Ecclesiastes 6. Verse 7. All the labor of a man is for his mouth, and yet the appetite is not satisfied. We work so that we can eat, so we can work, so that we can eat, so that we can work. You get the picture? All right? And then poof, what? It's over. Remember that I said some people cannot handle the shalom prayer. But you see, there's more to the story than just this. The author, though, he keeps reminding us that it is ABEL, futile breath. He also wants us to glean that even though it is ABEL, it can be lived one of two ways, though usually a combination of both. We can live it in pursuit of things that bring real value to the time that we have on this earth, and I might add to the time that we have afterwards. Or we can spend it fretting and fighting and pursuing things that eat up the short little time that you have on earth and blow your shalom or serenity on things and stuff and pride and vanity. He says that he has done all these and watched others do it too. Now he wants us to be aware before we waste any more of our temporary lives. You know, we don't have to learn the lesson ourselves, amen? Because before you know it, poof, it's over. But in the end, we decide how we will live our lives. There's a lot of wisdom to be gleaned from this little book. And once you figure out and apply what the author's trying to convey, you can make some very meaningful decisions as to how to live your futile little life. So let's take a look at a few passages and see what we can glean. It may be futile and fleeting, but there is an appointed time for all things. Amen. So let's look at Ecclesiastes 3. Starting in verse 1. For every matter, there's an appointed time, even a time for every pursuit under the heavens. A time to be born and a time to die. A time to plant and a time to uproot. A time to slay and a time to heal. A time to break down and a time to build up. A time to weep and a time to laugh. A time to mourn and a time to dance. A time to throw away stones and a time to gather stones. A time to embrace and a time to refrain from embracing. A time to seek and a time to lose. A time to keep and a time to throw away. A time to tear, a time to sow. A time to be silent and a time to speak. A time to love and a time to hate. A time for battle and a time for peace. What does the worker gain from his toil? I have seen the task Elohim has given to the sons of men to be humbled by it. He has made it all pretty in its time. Even the ages He has put in their hearts, except that no one finds out the work that Elohim does from the beginning to end. I know that there is no good for them but to rejoice and to do good in their lives, and also that every man should eat and drink and enjoy the good of all his labor. It is a gift of Elohim. I know that whatever Elohim does is forever. There is no adding to it, and there is no taking from it. Elohim does it that men should fear before Him. Hallelujah. Whatever is, has already been, and what shall be has been before, but Elohim seeks out what has been pursued. Then again I saw under the sun, in the place of right ruling, wrongness was there. And in the place of righteousness, wrongness was there. I said in my heart, Elohim judges the righteous and the wrong, and there is a time for every matter and for every work. I said in my heart concerning the matters of the sons of men, Elohim selects them so as to see that they themselves are beasts. For the event of the sons of men is also the event of beasts. One event befalls them. As one dies, so dies the other. Indeed, they all have one breath. Man has no advantage over beasts, for all is futile. All are going to one place. All came from the dust, and all return to the dust. Who knows the spirit of the sons of men, which goes upward, and the spirit of the beast, which goes down to the earth? So I saw that man could do no better but to rejoice in his own work, for that is his portion. For who would bring him to see what shall be after him? All right, let's look at chapter 7. Verse 14. Be glad in the day of prosperity, but in the evil day take note that Elohim has appointed the one as well as the other, so that man should not uncover what shall be after him. I have seen it all in my days of futility. There is a righteous one perishing in his righteousness, and there is a wrong one living long in his evil. Do not be over righteous, neither be over wise. Why destroy yourself? Look at this one. Do not be wrong over much, and do not be a fool. Why die before your time? Did you get that? Shlomo is instructing you to not say, hey y'all, watch this. You see that? Don't be a fool. Why die before your time? It is good that you should take hold of this, and also not withhold your hand from the other. For he who fears Elohim comes forth with all of them. Wisdom makes the wise strong, more than 10 rulers that are in a city. For there is not a righteous man on earth who does good and does not sin. I think Yeshua made a reference to that, didn't he? Also, do not take to heart all the words they speak, lest you hear your servant cursing you. For you know in your heart that many times you have cursed others. All this I have proved by wisdom. I said I am wise, but it was far from me. Verse 29. Truly, this only I have found, that Elohim made man straight, but they have sought out many devices. Chapter 8, verse 11. Because the sentence against an evil deed is not executed speedily, therefore the heart of the sons of men is filled in them to do evil. Boy, there's some wisdom in that, isn't there? Although a sinner is doing evil 100 times and his life is prolonged, yet I know that there is good to those who fear Elohim, who fear before Him. But it shall be well with the wrong one. But it shall not be well with the wrong one, nor would he prolong his days as a shadow, because he does not fear before Elohim. Verse 14. There is a futility which has been done on earth, that there are righteous ones who get according to the deeds of the wrong, and there are wrong ones who get according to the deeds of the righteous. I said this too is futile. Chapter 9, verse 1. For all this I took to heart, even to search out all this, that the righteous and the wise and their deeds are in the hand of Elohim. No man knows whether love or hatred awaits him. It is the same for all. One event to the righteous and to the wrong, to the good and to the clean and to the unclean, and to the one slaughtering and to the one not slaughtering. As is the good one, so is the sinner. The one swearing is the one fearing an oath. There is an evil in all that is done under the sun. There is one event to all. Truly the hearts of the sons of men are filled with evil, and madness in their hearts while they live. And then to the dead. But for him who is joined to all the living, there is trust, for a living dog is better than a dead lion. For the living know that they shall die, but the dead know not, nor do they have any more reward, for their remembrance is forgotten. Also their love and their hatred and their envy have now perished, and they no longer have a share in all that is done under the sun. Go, eat your bread with joy, and drink your wine with a glad heart, for Elohim has already approved your works. Let your garments be white at all times, and let your head lack no oil. See, life with the wife whom you love all the days of your life, which he has given you under the sun, all your days of futility. For that is your share in life, and in your toil, which you have labored under the sun. All that your hand finds to do, do it with all your might. For there is no work or planning or knowledge or wisdom in the grave where you are going. I again saw under the sun that the race is not to the swift, nor the battle to the mighty, nor even bread to the wise, nor even riches to men of understanding, nor even favor to men of knowledge. For time and chance meets with them all. For even man does not know his time, like fish taken in an evil net, and like a bird caught in a snare. So the sons of men are snared in an evil time, when it comes down on them suddenly. Also, this I saw as wisdom under the sun, and it is great to me. A little city, and a few men in it, and a great sovereign came against it, and besieged it, and built huge siege works against it. And there was found in it a poor wise man, and by his wisdom he delivered the city, yet no one remembered that poor man. And I said, wisdom is better than might, but the wisdom of the poor man is despised, and his words are not heard. The words of the wise, spoken calmly, should be heard rather than the shout of a ruler of fools. Wisdom is better than weapons of conflict, but one sinner destroys much good. I want you to know what the original name of this message was. I was going to call the name of this message, and you were gone. But I couldn't spell. You can't either. And so I named it, and poof, it was over. All right? Let us not lose sight of our plight. You know, Talitha said something one time that I told her would likely wind up in this message. She said, if I died today, it would be okay because I have lived. Isn't that wonderful? How wonderful that'd be to have that attitude, you know? It may actually wind up in a song, you know. It may wind up in a song. There's already a song with the words, and you were gone, so I won't be writing that one. But I don't know if she realized that it was poetry when she spoke it, but it is. If I died today, it would be okay because I have lived.
Very smart young lady.
Yep. Do you realize that that's about 90 to 90% of the concept that the author of Ecclesiastes is trying to get across to you? He's trying to get us to embrace that wrapped up in that one little short verse that she said. If I died today, it would be okay because I have lived. Back to verse 9 of Ecclesiastes 9. See, that's one of the things I do like about the KJV. It says behold instead of see. It just sounds good. See, life with the life whom you love, all the days of your futile life which he has given to you under the sun, all your days of futility. For that is your share in life, and in your toil which you have labored under the sun. All that your hand finds to do, do it with your might. For there is no planning or knowledge or wisdom in the grave where you are going. Our last passage today is going to be Ecclesiastes chapter 12. When I've got all the passages close together, I don't get to drink as much coffee. Ecclesiastes chapter 12, verse 13. Let us hear the conclusion of the entire matter. Fear Elohim and guard His commands, for this applies to all mankind. For Elohim shall bring every work into right ruling, including all that is hidden, whether good or whether evil. Live your life and serve Yahweh. Love your loved ones. And seek out the things that really matter in life. It's all that you will ever have under the sun. Don't just blow it. Get it? Blow it. Don't just blow it. Because before you know it, poof, it'll be over. Yavrokeka Yahweh Vaishmareka Yair Yahweh Panavaleka Vikaneka Yasa Yahweh Panavaleka Viasem Laka Shalom. Yahweh bless you and guard you. Yahweh make His face to shine upon you and show favor to you. Yahweh lift up His face upon you and give you His complete contentment.